Hi guys, welcome back. If you're just joining me, please take a step backwards to check out the first part of this particular application tutorial. And if you've been glued with me, let's continue. Let's do other aspects of this particular integration. We'll be looking at the item and the item response. These classes are exclusively for Retrofit, whereby you get to call the different KeyValue Pairs, right from the JSON, right from those JSON values. You get to call the login and the value, and you get to call other aspects of the key and value pairs. So that's just what we're going to be doing right inside the item and item response. So let's quickly get us started. Now the first key will be the login. Now I'm going to call on @serialized name. That's from JSON annotations. Now I'm going to have login as the first serialized name, and we get to expose that. So create a private string login. So I'm actually going to copy this because we need just two more. This should be for avatar, and this should be avatar URL. We need one more. This should be for HTML URL, and should be HTML URL. If you're kind of lost, like where are we getting these values, I'll go back to our JSON. Now if you should notice, there's login, this avatar URL, that's the key, and also HTML URL. That's the three we're needing, and this avatar is for the profile picture, the login is like the username, and the HTML URL is the Github page of this particular user. So back to Android Studio. Now I'm going to create a constructor, public item string login string avatar URL string is for HTML URL. Now I'm going to initialize them. This login equals to login. This avatar URL equals to avatar URL. This HTML URL equals to HTML URL. That's fine. Close the right there. I'm going to have the get and set public string get login. Just to get the login. Now return login public set login. That's if you need this to set it. Probably you want to probably you need to push to the APIs to send to the DB to change the login or do something. That's when you need a set method. Login. We're going to this login equals to login public void, since it's not returning a value, So now I'm going to copy this going to be for get varchar URL, varchar URL, return varchar URL. So for set, varchar URL, take parameter varchar URL, equals to varchar URL. Now I need to get for the last one, which will be for HTML URL. That will be HTML URL, return HTML URL. I need to set, this is encapsulation get and set method in Java. Set HTML and also HTML. That's fine. We've completed the get and set method, and we'll move straight to the item response to get the response of the service, which is this item response. This get items, that's what we'll be getting. So in the item response. Now we still need the serializable. Serialize name. This will be for items. So I'm going to actually show you where I've gotten the items from. So I want you to understand when it comes to consuming JSON. Once you understand it, you get it once and for all. You don't learn it twice, you only learn it once. So that's it. You have the private list item. So we're creating the items object of this list. Let's import the list. That's fine. Now we have a method public list passing the item. We call the get items. You can see that. Now we're going to return items. It's fine. Now we can even have the set as well. Maybe if you want to set the or change the items, set items. Now we pass the list. That will be item, call items. It's fine. These items equals to items. That's just it. So let me show you where we've gotten these items from. Come over here. Do you notice this? That this is the array, this is the items. So each item is over here. There's the first item, there's the second. You can see that second array. So that should be if you're actually using the index of array, this should be 0, this should be 1, 2, 3, you know, all sitting right inside the items array. So get that stick, you must understand that. So that's why I'm having the items response here. So that's fine, because we're going to make call to this get items, because once you get items, that's when you have to get all these arrays, you know, right inside the items array. That's just it. That's just what that means. So I'll be moving on quickly. We'll be heading to, I think, let's have the item result. you know, since we have the item response. No, we might not need a result because we actually populate the response and the response is fine. So let me just take away this result. We don't need a result, just should be fine with the adapter and so on. So we'll be moving straight to the main activity of this particular application. This extends AppCompact. We have the onCreate method. We call the super and call the layout. So right inside here, we're going to create some fields. First one is the private Recyclerview, because we're going to use the Recyclerview to populate the list. We get to do that in the item adapter. So we're going to do that, create the view order and passing some other things there. Now we have the text view for disconnected. Now we're going to have the private model, which should become, no, we don't need that lengthy, we just call this item. So it's actually going to import it, that's fine. And we have this set this way. Create an object. We also need progress dialog. PD. And we're going to call for the swipe. Refresh. Refresh layout from the version 4. Give it an object called swipe container. That's fine. So we're good to go. Now in the onCreate, we call the init views, you know, that's a method which was created out of the onCreate. Okay, to call that later. Now let's initialize the swipe container. It's the swipe refresh layout. We'll find the view by ID. ID. Now swipe container right in the activity main. So let's configure the refreshing color. Let's configure the refreshing color. Swipe container. I'm gonna set color scheme resources over there, and we call the Android. So we'll give it dedicated color, which is out of the box from Android, although orange, dark over there. Now we set on refresh listener, not on click listener now. Android with its unique name, set on refresh listener. Instantiate new swipe refresh layout. We call on refresh listener. Now it's going to create, instead of on click, it's going to be on refresh. Out override. So public void is not returning a value. On refresh, so what's it gonna do? It's gonna load JSON. We have a method to actually load the JSON file, and it's actually going to toast make text. Let's make the text for main activity. Let's say users. Let's call it Github users refreshed. You can give any name if you like. Let's move on with toast. We call the length short, and we have to show this dialog. That's fine. Main activity, I think it should be dot controller, or it's gonna be controller something. Okay, let's use the this keyword to make it our reference to this particular class. I think that'll be fine. All right, that's good. So now we're going to have the init views, which we actually passed in the onCreate method. So let's get to have that method called init views. It's a private method, so it can only be called by the main activity. Void init views. Let's create that. Now we call the PD, which is the dialog, instantiate new progress dialog. This class, same PD, we're gonna set message. So let's say fetching Github users. 1, 2, 3. That's fine. Still call the PD the dialog. Set cancelable to false. Now we got to show the dialog. That's fine. Now we're going to initialize the Recyclerview, because that's the views that we're going to use. We call the Recyclerview. We just close this up, no space. Find a view by ID. Call the Recyclerview. Now we're going to set the layout manager of the Recyclerview. Set layout manager. Instantiate with a new linear. We are not using grid. This is where you specify if you're using either grid or linear. So we are using a linear layout. We get ApplicationContext, Recyclerview, the smooth scroll to position. Let's have a smooth scroll. And after that, what we do, we'll load JSON. We'll get to see what this class is going to do. This method, rather. It's a method. Load JSON. So now we will head straight to the load JSON. JavaScript object notation. That's the full meaning of JSON. Now let's quickly do that. Private. Also private. So only the main activity that can make reference to it. Load JSON. And if you want to call it out of the main activity, you need to create a public method that will make reference to the private method, and you can actually use it out there. So first of all is the disconnected. Call the text view. Find a view by ID. Now we have ID disconnected. So we're going to have a try and catch statement. Now the first try. What we try, let's call the client, give an object of client. This goes to, let's instantiate new client. We need to import the client, so we import that from the API, alt enter with the set. Now let's call the service, API service, give it an object which will be equals to, now we have the client get client. Now we're using the client to create, we're going to use to create a service class. Dot class. That's fine. So moving, if you're following, actually want this to stand alone and it requires some space, so we have breathing space to work. That's fine, because I want you to follow along with this. This is the core when it comes to API consuming. So after the client, after we create a class, the service, now I'm going to call the call, which is actually, I will show you in a moment. Let me type item response, you know, the class over there, this response. That's fine. We passed it into the generic. Now we'll give a call equals the API service. There's an API service out of the box that gets the items. Now we're calling this item response, this get items method. That's what we're calling over there. So item response, actually need to it should be caps. Notice item response. That's fine. So we need to import that. It's actually this model class, and also we import retrofit core of the set. So let's move on. Now we're going to have the call object to enqueue Now inside here we instantiate the new callback item response, just this. So we have on response and on failure. Can you see that that's set? So on response, what we're going to do, we're going to call the list, passing the item. And now we have the items equals the response body. So that's what we're actually going to use right in the adapter, which is actually going to be the Recyclerview body get items method. Now we call the Recyclerview. Now can you see that we set the adapter, new instantiate, new adapter. I don't want this. I'm just on do new adapter, or new, let's say new or item adapter. Yes, item adapter, since we're going to create an adapter to undo the Recyclerview. So we need to import that, but we still need to pass in values into there. Now inside here we need to get application context. This is quite tricky, but once you get the flow, you understand it forever, or for the time being when Android exists. So we need to close that. So for that, yeah, we need to close that right there. So for items, that's fine, close that right there. Now we need to call the, actually don't need all this, I don't think I need this, just created earlier. Now I call the Recyclerview. For smooth scroll to position, pass 0, that's fine. So we're going to actually make a toast. So we get a swipe container to set refreshing, set refreshing to false. There's no refresh. Now we need to hide our dialog. That's fine. So we still need to work on the adapter, which is the item adapter. We'll get to do that later on. So let's move on. Now on failure, probably there's a failure. What should happen? So let's undo that. Log. Let's log the error. Get a message. Let me import the log. That's fine. Now make a toast. Make text. Call the main activity of this class. Nice. We pass the error text. Error fetching data with exclamation. So toast that with the length of shots. Let's show the dialog. Show. That's fine. Now we call disconnected. Set the visibility to view visible over there, and let's hide the dialog. That's fine. Now we're going to catch for the exception. Catch in any try, there must be a corresponding catch, or you either declare the likely errors up there whereby you implement, but you don't actually need to do that if you actually know the kind of error that might come up. So you log let's have the error. Get message and toast. Make text this class to string and toast the length short, and let's show the dialog. Quite fine and simple. The get application context, which is the items, will actually get cleared when we get to pass some values into the item adapter. So the item adapter is basically the Recyclerview, and we'll get that done. So extends Recyclerview adapter, which is going to be item adapter, called the view order. So never mind with that. First of all, create the private list item. After that is items. The private context. Now let's have a constructor. Let's import this. Import the class. Public. Item adapter. Now in there we just have context, the application context, we have the list item, and we have the item array list. That's fine. Now this context will be equals to, give a space there, application context. The same thing goes for these items. We're still gonna need it, but let's move on. List. Now let's have the override, which is the public item adapter view order on create view order, pass the view group, objects, integer I. Let's bring in the view group. Let's move on. Now we call the view equals to layout inflator from the view group get context. Now we need to inflate this. Our layout, we call the row user the view group, we assign false to this, close that right there. Now we need to return the new view order, pass the view, this is parameter, we won't import the Recyclerview order yet because we're likely to create our own. At override, now let's have the unbind view order, public void unbind view order, we pass item adapter dot view order, view order object, integer I. It's fine. Now we call the view order, get the title. Now we are trying to get the objects assigned to each view. That's what we are doing here. We actually created some empty fields, so that we are trying to get that attached, so you should know what is actually happening. So that's just it. So we set text. Can you notice that? Set text. Now we call the items get the I, which will be the get login. Be following. Close that right there. Same thing goes for the Github. Link 1. I notice we have an ID of such. Set text. Items get, that's an ID. Now get HTML URL. That's fine. Now we're going to be using Picasso to make the image call. So we actually need to include Picasso. We'll be using Picasso. So let's go to the build Gradle. I didn't include Picasso, so I need to actually include Picasso here. Let's have the dependency of Picasso. Picasso should be compile com dot square up to square up dot Picasso 2.4.0. That's fine. We use Glide, we use Picasso, so we're going to sync. After that, go back to the adapter, item adapter, and go back there. So I'm going to continue. So we're going to use Picasso to call the image. So we're going to have something of this nature. I'm going to call Picasso with context. Now you load the items that gets I get avatar URL, because that's the link to the image. Now that's placeholder arc_driver dot load and into view order dot image view. So the load drawable, I have a GIF animation. I'm actually going to paste that right inside the drawable, so I'll get to show you. Let me show you the GIF. This is it. So this is actually going to show before the image profile picture uploads and display. So this will be the default image to show. So back to the item adapter. Now I have the view order which calls on the image view. No problem with that. The view order will be created shortly. So I'm actually going to create the count, whereby I have the at override. I have to count for the items size. So we're going to call the public integer get item count. I need to return items dot size. Size. Never mind, super fine. So now I need to create the view order, the view order we've been waiting for. So let me create that. It's a class, public class view order extends the recycler view order. So right there I'm going to have the private field, which is the text view. Got title and also Github link 1. These are the fields I need. And for the image view, give this image view. It's fine. So I'm going to have the constructor view order. Yes, let's minimize all this. So now I have space. And then we have the constructor. It will be public view now I'll call the super view order. We call this super view. That's fine. Now we initialize the title. Text view. And we need the ID. The view find by ID. I pass the ID title. For the Github link 1 will be equals to the same thing we have here. This time the ID will be thumbnail, or let's say it's gonna be Github link 1. Close that right there. It's fine. We're going to actually do something here quickly. The view order that extends, sorry, you don't need to close you there. Actually need you to, it's constructor right inside the view order class. Sorry for that. So let's continue with the image view. Equals, now it's going to call the image view, and we get a view, find view by ID. Now they are ID cover. That's for you. Now on ItemClick, fine, we have it set. We need to integrate on ItemClick right inside here. So let's have the on ItemClick. We're gonna have on ItemClick. So if you click on each view, now you call the item view set on click listener. You instantiate with the new view on click listener. On click listener, and you need to create the on click. Override public, some space, void on click, call the view v. So first of all, get the position. Okay, so let's get a position. We'll get adapter position. We also check if item still exists. So if the position is not equals to Recyclerview no position, what you're going to do, get the item, click data item, click data item. I think we need to import this. Alt enter. I think we actually need to import the model item instead of the clip data, since we have that's created. So let's import that as well. So we got that all cleared out. Item clicked data. So from here we're going to make that equals to the items get position now we're going to pass the intent. So let's call on intent, create an object intent equals, instantiate the new intent to call the context. Now that calls the detail activity dot class. Let's import intent. So after this we need the intent object to put some extras in there. Intent, we call put extra, so because we're going to pass that to the next activity. You can see this is a full package. No, so this is actually good for you. Once you learn this, this is the road to be an advanced Android developer. Items, get position, get the login method. So that will actually populates the login detail, which is the username. Intent, put extra, this should be for the HTML URL. See what I'm doing. It should be HTML URL. This is the key, and now the value will be the get wherever. So that's what this is doing, but you need to get the position so that we know the particular ID. You know, this attaching the ID and the position, so that it's not just going to be modeling the data up, because they are unique for different users. So we get HTML URL, intent PUTEXTRA. This time is for the avatar URL, items, get position, now get avatar URL. So you have that closed. Close that out. Avatar URL. Okay, this sugar items. Now we need to add, still need intent, add flags. I call the intent class flag activity new text. Sorry. Is it there? New text. Because we're going to do another text. Context. Now start activity, pass the intent. That's fine. Now we're going to toast yet make text. Now get context. You click space, concatenate with the clicked data item. How about you get the login? That's the username. Now you toast length chart. I show that. Beautiful. So you have the set. Take this away. Don't need that. Unclear on. I don't think we also need that as well. The last. So for that, that's fine. We have this set and ready. The Recyclerview has been set, and I'm very sure no error whatsoever anywhere. The item adapter. There's any. We'll get to undo that. Little adjustment. Get HTML URL, not URL. So back to item adapter. We need to adjust it here, and it should be fine. That's okay. We're good to go. So let's look at our main activity. Can you see the get application context disappears? It's fine. It's sitting ready. The item response, that's for the items array, and the adapter populates the Recyclerview and sets the PUTEXTRA, you know, because it's actually pushing these extras to the detail activity for use on click of each view, you know. So we'll go straight to the detail activity to finish up. So this is actually going to be the last activity we'll be looking at, and we actually have to first of all extend with app compact, compact activity, Now we need to pass in some text view. Let's say title, or let's say link, and username. So import this, and we have the toolbar m action bar toolbar. Let's import this as well. Now the image view. That's fine. Let's have our own create method. Create bundle saved instance state, import the bundle, call the super on create, save instance state. Now we set the content view to layout, activity detail, import this. Now we're going to get support action bar to set display as up enabled true. Okay, we'll get to undo this right in the manifest. Let's continue. Now let's initialize this fields equals to list view, or image view rather, because an image view. Now called find view by ID, call the user image header, that's for the detail activity. For username, text view, find view by ID, ID, username. Now we get a link. That will be the GitHub URL. Text view. Find view by ID as well. ID. Link. So now let's get all extras from previous activity. So I'm going to run string username equals get intent get extras get string. Now passing the key, which will be login. Same thing goes for the avatar URL. Avatar. Get intent. Get extras. Get string. Or passing the key, which is avatar URL. Close that. Now let's get for the HTML URL string. Let's call that link. Get intent. Get extras. Get string. Pass the key. HTML URL. That's fine. So for this link, let's linkify it. Let's make it a link to a web page. So we're going to call on link to set text. I'll pass the link. This parameter there, and now we'll call on linkify. Add links. Call link linkify to web URLs. That's fine. Now let's get detail activity for the username. Set text. Pass username. And we use glide to load up. That's when we're using glide to load up the user profile image. So import glide from BobTech. First we'll load. I'm going to load avatar URL. That's the URL. We place that in a placeholder. But the default will be drawable. Load. And we'll place that into the image view. That's fine. This is how to use glide. Now after this, we're going to set title details. We get to do that in the manifest. We may not need to do that right here. We'll do that in manifest, or we can just do it here. We can still reference that in manifest. Get support action bar to set title. Let's call it details activity. That's fine. So now we want to integrate the share at the settings, which is actually at the action bar. So let's call the private method intent create share forecast intent. Is a whole lot. We're almost true. Now import this. Now we call the string. We just copy this because this is actually out of the method. Copy. We actually need for the link. Let's change this. Link. That's fine. Now inside here, we'll need to call an intent to share, which is share intent. That will be equals to the share compact intent builder from this class. Now we're going to set the type. Sorry, we don't need to close that right there. Set the type. It should be text plain. Set text. Say checkout. It's actually going to share this to any calling text application, WhatsApp, Facebook, message, Gmail, name them. Person, developer, art. Concatenate with the username, space, concatenate the comma and space, concatenate with link. That's fine. Now you call the get intent. After that, you return the share intent. That's how to create an intent for the share. So let's get a work. We need to override public boolean on create options menu. Call the menu, give an object. Now we call the menu inflator. Inflate equals to get menu inflator. Let's import the menu, import the class. What else are we going to do? Now the object inflator, or should be inflator. What object did I create? I create inflate. I need inflator. Please inflate. Now pass the menu. I've created that earlier. Detail. Menu. It's fine. Now we call the menu item class from the view. Menu item equals to menu. Find item ID action share from the menu. We get that. Now the menu item object, we set the intent to now create. That's where we're sending it to the shared forecast intent. So that's how to use that, and we need to return true. Beautiful, beautiful. We're through with the coding. I hope you understand all what we've been doing. Now this is when we actually inflate the menu, which is the detail which was created earlier, that houses the share icon, and this will actually call this method, to actually take up the text. We assign the username and the link. So it's actually called any calling application, either message application, either WhatsApp, either Facebook, Gmail, name them, any message application will actually take up this. So that's fine. We'll look at the manifest. The manifest, which is the metadata of an application, of an Android application. We need to include permission, use this permission, Android permission, internet, very important because we are calling from an online service. Now the controller activity is the launcher. Now we need to register the detail activity. That's it there. And we also need to specify its parent. Without that, the up enabled icon won't work, based on this particular API. Parent activity name, which is main activity. That's fine. And here we call the Android name. No, we should call the metadata. Android name. It should be Android support parent activity. And let's assign value, Android value, which will be the controller main activity. So with this way of assigning the home as up enabled, we identify that there's a main activity. So the attribute activity name is only used in API level 16, which you have 15 as the minimum. So let's get to make the minimum SDK here the 16, and let's sync ready. So with all this set, we have our application set and ready for testing. Whereby we've talked about a lot of things here. A quick recap: we have the API whereby we have the client, which is the base URL, and the service, which is the endpoint, and also a call to the item response to get the items. So that actually takes us down to the item, whereby we set the get and set method in encapsulation, and we have the serialized name, which is the object that we needed, the login, the avatar URL, and the HTML URL. We use the set and get to get the value. And now with the item response, which is actually the items. The items is the array in question. So we actually need to create that as well. So that takes us down to the controller, where we have the main activity, which is the launcher, whereby we have the onCreate, which set the layout main, whereby we instantiate the swipe container. We set the onRefresh listener to this by instantiating with the new swipe refresh layout. So on refresh, we load the JSON, and we also toast some message. We also pass the init views inside the onCreate method. The init view first of all called the progress dialog, and also initialize the Recyclerview and still load JSON. Now load JSON did the JSON call, whereby it first of all instantiate the client, and also the service, created the API service, and get the item response call, whereby we actually get the items from each array, and we instantiate the new item adapter, which is the Recyclerview, and on failure, it handles it, and also the exception. So the item adapter, which is basically the recycler layout, actually fixed those values right inside the appropriate view that I can see there, whereby it get the login and get the HTML URL based on the position. And when the item adapter also passed in some extra intent to the detail activity for use, whereby we have the get login, the get HTML URL, and the get avatar URL. That takes us to the detail activity. So on click on each item gets us here, whereby we display the image with glide, and as well we'll create a linkify link of the GitHub account of this user using the linkified web URLs, and also we display the username. So that's this, and we also inflate the share icon to actually share, to call in application, the text, check out this awesome developer, and the username with the link. That's fine. We're good to go. So let's get this tested right in the emulator. Don't go anywhere. So here we go with the application. or can you see the loading? So this actually depicts the image before it loads its appropriate image. It depends on your network. I think my network is slightly slow. Can you get the Github refreshed? Let's get to look, stay a little bit so that we get the image loaded. A quick fix, this should be a vector URL. Get that corrected. So let's get to check the emulator. So yeah, we go with the application, the Java developers. Can you see that? Can you see the list right there in the Recyclerview with card layout? See the profile image and the username of each user. We have up to 30 of them. Can you see that? Can you see the smooth scroll in display? Look at how the Recyclerview makes this list appealing to users. Can you see that? Up to the last user, which is Marty Mandy. Can you see how the flow actually is slick, and Glide actually make it populated so well. Glide and Picasso did a good job in the picture. Even the refresh, get the Github users refreshed, so it's actually going to call on refresh. Let's get to look at what will happen. On swipe down, it's actually going to load the JSON again, and if you should notice, you saw the toast Github users refreshed. So that's just how it is. So let's do a click on Moyen, which is the first. To the details activity, can you see the large picture of Moyen is our username, and even the Github profile link. So a click on this will actually link down to the Github profile link of Moyen. It's a profile page, so let's get to see that. Can you see our profile page? She has some repositories right there on GitHub, and look at our location, Lagos. So go back. Now let's get to share this. Let's see if the share worked. We only have messaging application because this is an emulator. That's fine. Check out this awesome developer. So let's click back. No, we don't need this to go, but that's fine. This is just what the application is, using the GitHub API to get the users, get the image, get the GitHub profile link, and also get the username back to the main activity, which is Java developers. This is just what we've been doing right from the beginning, and I hope you stood by to finish this tutorial. This is very useful for you if you want to be a versatile Android developer. Thank you very much for hanging out with me throughout this 2 video session, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Have a wonderful time. Bye bye.